Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our session, Success Without Struggle, Tools for Modern Leaders. My name is Emma Smales, and I am absolutely delighted to be your host for this session this morning. Are you like me? Do you feel like you're constantly spinning plates, moving from one pressure situation to another? But what if success did not need to be like this? Today, I am absolutely delighted to be joined by a panel of experts to deliver 4 focus sessions: the power of personal presence, overcoming barriers and sustaining long-term motivation, how to communicate with confidence and clarity, and taking control of your business destiny. We will have a live Q&A at the end of the 4 sessions, so please do put your questions in the Q&A box and make it the most beneficial session for you. Just a little bit about FSB and who we are. When you join FSB, we support small businesses like you. Members have access to an array of benefits, including 24-hour-a-day, 7-day expert legal guidance, our tax investigation helpline, library of legal resources and documents, debt recovery, HR advice, employment protection, funding support, financial support, our FSB insurance services, a vast array of others such as health and health support, CPT training, and of course our events like today that are across the UK, helping you to build your new connections and grow your business. To become a member, please have a look at our website, fsb.org.uk/membership. Or if you'd like to have a chat with somebody after this webinar about joining, then reach out to our local events team who brought you this webinar at northengland@fsb.org.uk. Our first session, we have Paul Glynn. As we bring Paul on, just a reminder about the Q&A box. Paul will present the power of personal presence. He is a Sandler trainer and coach with over 15 years experience of running his business development training franchise. He is really well placed to offer some thought-provoking guidance on how to create and build your success. In this session, you will learn what are the core constituents and how you can deliberately increase your personal presence.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Just want to well, it's always the way, isn't it? When technical stuff, don't just love it when it just doesn't go right. Hang on a second. I'm guessing you still can't see my screen. Share.
Yeah, not yet, Paulie.
No, this is a good start.
Don't worry.
Here we go. Here we go. That's the
Perfect.
okay. Okay. Success without struggle. How about that for a struggle to start off with? Right, personal presence. I want to talk to you about why it's important, but also how you can deliberately increase it. So let's have a look at what personal presence really is. You might have an idea already, but let's have a quick little look at what that means. Someone with a high level of personal presence enters a room or maybe just suddenly appears on a screen, and somehow everybody notices that they just stand out. It doesn't mean to say they're necessarily flashy or doing anything apparently different, but why is that? Why is it that they're managing to stand out in a way that other people don't? And very importantly, what difference would that make if the screen would actually go on? Yes, what advantage would that give you in your business world? What difference would that mean? How, at the end of the day, when people are doing business with you, they're buying a piece of you. They want something of you and from you. And in effect, they're buying into your personal presence. So that's why it's so important to get this nailed as best we possibly can. We need to look at what makes personal presence because it's otherwise it's just too vague. I'm going to suggest there are 9 ingredients, and that starts off with the 3 factors, the top level, if you like. Personal presence is made out of communication. It's made out of energy, and not surprisingly, character too. So let's have a look at those in a bit more detail, though. What are the ingredients of energy? What makes up energy in our life? Vitality. That's fairly obvious, I think. We need to be full of energy and be present when we're talking to our potential client or our existing contacts. Perseverance. It's no point in just having that flashy in the pan kind of energy. We need to be able to keep going, keep going, keep going, even when things are not going according to plan. So we need to have some ways of being able to look after our perseverance. And of course, passion. I think that's probably the wellspring of our energy, isn't it? When we really are prepared to suffer for something, that's passion. So let's really break this down further. What are the three ingredients of communication? Well, content, obviously. We need to have some good content. We need to really understand what our level of content is for the right people we're talking to. It's got to be good quality. Delivery. How are we going to come across? How are we actually going to say that? How are we going to come in everything that we do, both written and verbal? Feedback, however, I'm going to suggest is the most important part of communication. People really have to understand that we've got their best interests at heart. And the only way they're going to get that is if they understand that we have really listened and listened hard and are prepared to give them the challenging feedback that they need so they understand the value of your communication. Character. Wow. How do we deliberately increase character? Well, when we realize that character is made out of integrity, and self-responsibility and charisma, then maybe we can start working on it deliberately rather than just being something vague. Integrity, that means being absolutely whole. That's what it means, and being integral, being absolutely consistent with our principles. Self-responsibility is taking charge of everything, of being responsible for everything that's happening in our lives. And charisma, there's lots of different kinds of charisma. The one I think that's best for business is what we would call focus charisma, when it's obvious that you're the only person in the world during that piece of communication that they're really concentrating on. So there, I want to give you, it's all very well to talk about this in theoretical terms. I want to give you 15 things you can do today, right after this webinar, to increase your personal presence. I've actually counted up to 40 that you could do, but I'm going to give you 15 today. Here we go. Remembering that we're looking for personal presence, communication, energy, and character. How can we, for example, increase energy? Goes without saying, it comes down to exercise and diet, doesn't it? But this would suggest that rather than trying to have the excuse, oh, I don't have time for exercise, it's kind of the other way around. We don't get not to do the right amount of exercise that we can possibly do. We need to look after what it is we're eating and the kind of rest we're getting. Very important for our vitality. Perseverance, though, that long-term energy, how do we make sure we've got that sorted out? I'm going to say, well, you could do some journaling. As I say, have a success bank of the times when things went right. So when things aren't going according to plan quite, then you can go back to that and remind yourself that no, things do go well if you do things in the right way. Find a mentor. You might think that's really expensive, but do you know what? Sometimes the best mentors prepare to do things relatively inexpensively, that's even for free, because they understand the value of being the mentor. That would mean perhaps it's worth considering finding a mentee as well. It's a real challenge, but it kind of works. And of course, join a support group like the FSB, for example. Passion. That's the wellspring, as I said, of our energy. And for that, we're going to have goals for each area of our life, not just for business, not just for personal. I'm going to suggest for educational, spiritual, health, you name it, all the areas of life, so that you really know that you're looking after every single part of you when it comes to energy. Communication. I've already mentioned how, when it comes to content, you've got to be clear about their level of knowledge. So we're not assuming that we're talking at the wrong kind of register, the wrong kind of level. That means, however, you've got to be clear in your own definitions about what you're talking about and be sure of theirs. Do you know what? The number of times when even people who you suspect should know what it is you're talking about, your technical jargon, have got a completely different definition to yours. And that includes even in your own team. So there you are. There's a challenge for straight after this webinar. Get your team to write down a succinct definition of your main technical terms. And I think you're going to get a shock because they're going to be quite different from one another and quite possibly different from yours. Delivery. I don't know about you, but I find even like on these occasions when you're seeing yourself recorded can be a bit embarrassing, but it's worth doing, isn't it? To really understand how you're coming across. Do you speak too fast, too slow? What is it? What needs happening? And it might mean you need to get some coaching. Carlos, for example, is going to be talking to us a little later on. Maybe they would be a good place to go for your coaching. Feedback. Allow them to do most of the talking. They are going to really feel you are a fantastic communicator. If you manage to stop talking, you get them to do the talking instead. And that suggests really asking some fabulous questions. We show our expertise, believe it or not through what we say, but the questions that we ask. And that leads, last but not least, but character, integrity. How can we be sure that we have that integrity? Document your principles. Have you got them written down? Have you identified your business values? And do they then go across all parts of your life? Are they integral across your life? I wonder. Self-responsibility. Stop blaming others for when things go wrong. It's your fault. Whether it goes right, when it goes wrong, it's still your fault. Practice mindfulness. Lots of nice little exercises on that. I'm sure you know, like breathing exercises. Makes sense to be living in the now rather than regretting the past or worrying the future. And practice making decisions. Practice making decisions that don't perhaps matter so much. So you get into the habit of making decisions. So when you get to those bigger decisions, it's all that much bit easier. And last but not least, that ineffable thing called charisma. Consciously practicing focused charisma, really focusing and laser concentration on the person in front of you, very, very powerful. And that also means we have to be able to give and receive's the hard one, everything graciously. Right. Well, now, if you could do just some of those exercises, what difference would that make to your personal presence? And therefore, what definite difference would that make to your business? A lot, I suspect. So what have you learned? I'll ask you, what will you do better? What will you do more of or less, or just simply different? If you want a whole ebook on personal presence, let me know. Contact me on pglynn@sonar.com or call me on 07866518848. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thank you, Paul. What a great session. Just a reminder to everybody. So Paul's put your call to arms there. Put your questions and into our question box. I love the idea of practicing focus charisma, Paul. That's something I think I struggle with definitely in today's sort of Zoom environment. Actually focusing on individuals can be really, really difficult. Fabulous. So for our second session, we have Isaac Goldfarb. Isaac is a coach helping people build confidence and find motivation and reconnect with themselves. With lived experience and deep empathy, he creates safe, practical spaces for growth where clients stop performing and start living with clarity, self-worth, and real direction. What a wonderful sort of environment to be in. Isaac will be presenting Overcoming Barriers and Sustaining Long-Term Motivation. In this session, you will learn to identify the barriers to staying motivated and explore practical techniques to reignite your drive and keep your motivation alive over time. Welcome, Isaac.
Welcome, welcome, and thank you so much, Emma, and thank you so much, Natalie, for inviting me to speak about a topic that I am so passionately about, and I can talk about it hours and hours. Lucky for you, it's only for the next 10 minutes. Can someone confirm you can see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Oh, fantastic news, fantastic news. So, may I invite you, first of all of you there that are watching this, prepare yourself with a pen and paper or any other form of note taking, because I'm going to ask you some reflective questions, and it's really, really good for you to come back to it after this session. So firstly, very shortly about myself. My name is Isaac Goldfarb, as Emma said, and I've been in the IT industry for 25 plus years as an engineer, manager, and director in my last role. I'm also a proud parent of twins, 14 years old. If you are a parent of a teenager or you were a parent of a teenager, maybe you and I can share some feelings about some difficulties around it. I'm also a YouTube creator and a podcast creator. If you want to check more about my other sides of me, check out Toy and Goy and The Growing Pair in the Spotify and Apple podcast. So as I said to you, I've been working for many organizations and managing many people over those years, but what I haven't seen many of are women. And recently I've decided to make a shift in my career to become a confidence coach for women in tech who wants to break through the career barriers. I want to share with you my life coaching statement. I help people break through barriers, build real confidence, and achieve their goals, becoming the most successful version of themselves. So, motivation. We are talking about motivation and motivation barriers. So please, may I ask you to write down in your reflective notebook or your digital way, on a scale of 1 to 10, how motivated are you feeling at the moment? 1, not motivated at all. 10, super motivated. Where are you? Write it down and come back to it later. So what we are going to cover today is what motivation is in my mind, cover motivation barriers, and also how life coach can help you boost your motivation. So, first of all, what is motivation? Imagine you're a car and you want to get from point A to point B. And your car needs either fuel, petrol, diesel, electricity. Any of this, depends on your car, right? This is what I believe motivation is. Could be that your car won't be able to move from point A to point B for other reasons. But without these specific ingredients, your car would never move. So that's what motivation is for me. Motivation is that inner drive that pushes us to take the action and pursue goals. And I talked about fuel, right? It fuels behavior, it directs attention, and it sustains efforts. So with that in mind, I would like to ask you to reflect again. And I would like you to think about a recent time, maybe recently, maybe not recently, a recent scenario that you felt unmotivated to do. And I would like you to write down not necessarily the scenario itself. I would like you to think, how did it make you feel? When you think about that scenario, when you felt unmotivated, how did it make you feel? And if you want to share it in the Q&A, go ahead and share it, but also write it down, reflect on it. And once you've done it, I would like to ask you to think about the barrier. What stopped you from doing that specific thing you were supposed to do? And when you write it down, maybe you will find it in the next slides. I'm going to talk about the barriers of motivation. The barriers of motivation. So there are many barriers out there that can block you from doing the things you love doing. However, I group them to 4 barriers. And the first one is probably you will find familiarity in it. Maybe you had it at least once in your life. And it's the fear of failure. There are many things you would like to do, things that you dream of doing and you like very passionate about, but then you think, oh, I'm gonna fail it. I'm not gonna succeed. So this presentation I'm doing here to you, it's a short version of the whole presentation I'm doing about motivation every month. First Wednesday of the month you can join in and see it all. But what I'm talking about in the bigger presentation is about the failures and the mistakes and how we can reframe the failure and the mistake. And I would like to ask you to write this down and to think about failure and mistake, and instead of that, think about it as feedback to your life path. I'll say it again. Feedback to your life path. No more mistakes, no more failures. Feedback to your life path. And the moment you start thinking about it like that, then the failure is not as scary as it is. Because, okay, I will do something new, I will learn something new, and this will be my feedback to my life. So I hope that makes sense how to reframe fear of failure. The next barrier I would like to speak about is many people have those many ideas in their head. They want to do X and Y and Z, and loads of ideas, but they have so many ideas that they are not moving any forward because they don't have a clear goal in their mind. So not knowing where to begin or what you really want is a barrier. Think about that. And the third barrier I would like to speak about is burnout. And burnout is one of those things where you you probably only identify you have burnout when you get there. It's quite hard to identify the process, the path to that burnout. So what I'm asking my clients to do is ask themselves on a regular basis of, are they feeling exhausted? Are they feeling tired to do something, to continue doing something? And trying by asking those reflective questions to see if you're on your path to get to that burnout. And again, burnout is one of those things, it's very, very easy to get to that place. It's harder to find a way out of it. So burnout is another barrier that, you know, it's there and it's stopping us from doing what we want to do. And then the fourth barrier I would like to speak to you about is probably, I would like to bet that 99.9% of the people that's sitting here in this room had it at least once in their life. And I'm talking about procrastination. And procrastination, I will do it tomorrow, I will do it mañana, I will do it next week. That's what procrastination is, where we are putting off tasks that seem overwhelming. And just today, I'm gonna post on my LinkedIn, and if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, check my name, and you find I'm talking about a procrastination. And if we have time in the Q&A, Emma and Natalie, I'm more than happy to give you the tool I'm sharing there, how to beat procrastination. Very, very simple tool. I'm not sure time permits now, but there are some tools that I'm working with clients of how beating procrastination, how we can make this task, this horrid task we need to do, and we keep pushing it away. So those are the main 4 barriers for the motivation. And I would like to ask you now, which of those barriers resonated with you the most? Could be more than one, could be all of them, but which one of those you find, that's me, I'm doing that. Write it down, reflect it, and see the connection between that scenario you wrote down that you felt unmotivated to do. So with that in mind, I want to share with you how a life coach can actually help you boost your motivation, whether it's a life coach, whether it's a mentor. Someone asked in the questions about mentorship, how actually someone to work with you help you to boost your motivation. So one of the things I've done here is asking you some reflective questions. I ask you some challenging questions. And by doing that, we are doing 2 things. We are identifying some limiting beliefs, things that's stopping you from doing what you want to do. And also we are strengthening your self-awareness. Okay? So those are 2 things I really, really like doing with my clients. Identify what's stopping them and making them more strong, their self-awareness stronger. Remember, I talked about one of the barriers I talked about was lack of clear goals. So what I'm doing with my client is setting achievable goals. This is really, really important process to work on what is the goal, what is the clear goal you want to achieve. And by doing that, we're also building resilience and offering, of course, accountability and support. And just before I finish this, and I can't believe how 10 minutes are going by like that so quickly, I want to leave with you one last quote. I love quotes, but this is one of my most favorite quotes. It's our attitude at the beginning of a difficult task, which more than anything else will affect its successful outcome. Think about it. Think about the scenario you wrote at the beginning. Think about how you approach it and what was its outcome. That was said by William James, and William James was an American philosopher and psychologist in the US in the 19th century. That's all for me. This is my contact details if you want to get in touch. Thank you again, Emma and Natalie, for allowing me to participate in this panel.
Fabulous. Thank you, Isaac. I love quotes too. And I love the idea that failure is actually feedback to your life path. That's something I'm definitely going to take away. So thank you. So our first session is with Sinead Lunny. You know what I'm going to say, put your questions in the Q&A box. Sinead is a managing director of Vocalis, a voice and communication skills training company. She also runs a 200-strong speech and drama school and is an award-winning actor, voiceover artist, event host and speaker. A lawyer for many years, Sinead draws on her courtroom experience and speech and drama skill set to provide unique, fun, top-quality workshops in how to use one's voice for maximum effect. Her session, Communicate with Confidence and Clarity, will cover the common stumbling blocks around communication with real, actionable strategies to maximise your speaking impact. Welcome, Sinead.
Thank you very much, Emma. Delighted to be here. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so Emma, I wonder, could you let me know if you can see that and hear me okay?
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you so much. So yes, my session is called Communicate with Confidence, Clarity, and I've added in the word gravitas. And this will tie in, I think, beautifully with Isaac and Paul. Paul from Sandler's already spoken about personal presence. And I do mention a little bit about gravitas in your personality and in the business world. So this is the cheesy first slide. Welcome, FSB. What a treat we have in store. The truth is, some of the theory is quite dull. That's me saying that. So I've tried to find ways to make it enjoyable, if anything, to encourage you to keep up these voice exercises and techniques after today's workshop. Very quickly, Vocalis. Who are we and what do we do? And when I say we, I mean me, because it is still simply just me. Well, simply, I am obsessed with the voice. Always have been, always will be. And very often people are confused when I tell them what I do. They wonder, what exactly is it that I can help people with? Well, simply, it's on this slide. We transform voice into authentic power for a very wide portfolio of different clients, some of which are on the slide. But this wasn't always my job. I used to be a lawyer. Didn't really ever enjoy it. I fell into it because all my family is in the law. And I changed career when unfortunately our son was born with a very serious heart problem. And that was the catalyst for me to change career. Niall is now 10 years old and thriving. So my journey has been from lawyer to voice and communication coach. And I'm also very proud to say that last year I was the FSB Northern Ireland Entrepreneur of the Year. So this is the question I ask all of my clients. A lot of people say, and they're correct, think about your audience. Other people say, it's not about you, it's about your audience. I like to take a balanced approach. Typical lawyer, once a lawyer, perhaps always a lawyer. It's really important when you are communicating to an audience to work out what message do you want to give across to your audience? What is it that you want your audience to think about you whilst you're speaking? And I was challenged on this recently, and the person said, Sinead, it depends to whom I'm talking. I have to tailor my style depending on my audience. That's absolutely fine. And if that is the case, then simply add more words. But these are 3 key words, as I call them, and those words have to be with you at all times. Those words could be confident, emotional, kind, passionate, driven. It can be anything at all. I say to all of my clients at the outset to ascertain those 3 keywords. Keep them with you, saved on your phone, perhaps. Some clients of mine write these 3 words on the back of their hand before a big speaking event. Others, again, write them on a post-it note in their office. What I'm not telling you is this. I'm not saying, if you tell yourself you are these 3 things, you will become them, because that's not true. These are not aspirational things. You already are these words. What happens is, unfortunately, when the negative thoughts enter the mind, immediately our whole demeanor is attacked. We start to question, well, hold on a minute. Am I intelligent? Am I passionate? Am I driven? And straight away, your communication style starts to crumble. These figures have been bandied about for years and they do fluctuate, but these are the 3 ones that I like to use. It's the 3rd percentage that every single time I say it aloud, I question, is that definitely true? Because it sounds absolutely incredible. 55% of our communication is conveyed through our face. I know it also says body language, but let's think for a moment about our face. More specifically, our resting face. I know there's another slightly more vulgar expression, but we're all too polite to use that. So let's think about your resting face. Particularly, anecdotally, in my experience, I have found webinars like this, when you can see everyone's face, their whole personality becomes much more prominent because in a way there's nowhere to hide. So if you're ever losing the will to live in a webinar, but I'm sure that's never the case, especially today, I would hope. A little tip is to look interested, nodding of the head, slight head tilt, and a little gentle smile if appropriate. This is a top secret technique, slowly becoming a not very top secret technique because I've imparted it so many times. Recently, I discovered at a conference that I went to that if you put a slight pause between your first name and your surname, you immediately come across as much more confident. Who knew? I certainly didn't until recently, and now all of you know. What happens is very often we say our own names so quickly that they run off the tongue and they are elided, which means it's a little bit mumbled. So it's very important to have the little pause between your first and your second name. Also, if you're worried about perhaps being a little bit too softly spoken, which, by the way, in itself is perfectly fine, but sometimes people are too softly spoken. And the consequence of that is that the audience can find it quite grating and they can begin to switch off. So listen out for a slight echo in the room when you speak. You can listen to your voice resonating beautifully off all the surfaces. Then you know you're speaking at optimum volume. Where I am at the moment is in my beautiful studio in Northern Ireland. It's very echoey, so I'm spoiled here. But if you're in a normal room with a normal height ceiling, you can simply just speak out and see if you're hearing that echo. Also, start off speaking at a pace that actually feels too slow, because inevitably we will pick up the pace anyway. If you can do it at the start, it will stamp your gravitas, your authority, feeding into the personal presence, and there'll be fewer risks of ums and ahs. So those filler words, if you're very confident, can be crushed, if you like, by being completely silent. So instead of going, be totally silent, that's very, very challenging sometimes. A beautiful alternative is to use what I call a transitional phrase, something like, for example, next, moving on to, or even the word and. The word and can be a substitute for and a. So some very powerful techniques here. The articulators, the tip of the tongue, the teeth and the lips, hard palate, soft palate. We need to use all of these organs of articulation for clear speech. If we don't use even one of these things, our speech will come across as unclear. And of course, then we will lose that veneer of confidence. Pause is underrated. Just as a comedian pauses before the punchline of a joke, so too should we pause if we want to draw people's attention to a very important statistic, if we want to shock, if we want to have dramatic effect. It's very important to own the silence. And sometimes people are afraid of pause. It also helps with the structure and the logic of what you're saying. Breathing exercises, exceptionally important. I have a stammer. It's quite mild. Sometimes people are quite surprised to hear that, given my choice of job. But I have found that speech and language therapy in my younger days, as well as breathing, really, really helps. Even if you don't have a stammer, confidence before speaking is really enhanced when you get your breathing absolutely correct. And a lovely breathing exercise is just here on the slide. Very quickly then, speech nuances. Sometimes people don't even realize that they have these little weaknesses in their speaking that may be attacking their credibility. So mouth clicking, for example, is simply this sound. I'll do it again. And sometimes people do that before even articulating any words. Sometimes people do it when they're moving from point to point. The consequence sometimes is, if you do it excessively, that the audience loses interest or becomes irritated. Vocal fry is another one, and that's simply a frying of the vocal cords. So you're chatting away perfectly normally, and the next thing your voice ends up down here. It's become quite common at the moment, actually. It's become quite trendy. It's also known as TVR voice or TikTok voice. So it's very important to ensure your voice is always up and audible. Coming to the end of my presentation, I'd like to mention Presence by Professor Amy Cuddy, which is a really important technique to enhance your confidence and your focus. And then finally, our facial warm-ups. A bit of a rude image there towards the end. These are little exercises to really prepare for speaking. So we have no teeth, we have cat bum, and we have the Instagram pout. So, finally, I'd like to invite you all to speak with gravitas and use your voice. If you already admire a speaker who you think is very credible and very effective, by all means, borrow their style. Thank you so much for having me. I've very much enjoyed it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sinead. I love the tips on the resting face and the pause between the first and second name. Loads of tips there to take away. So for our last session, we're going to welcome back Paul, and a last shout out for that Q&A box. Paul will present Taking Control of Your Business Destiny. And in this session, you will learn how a new approach to help you guide conversations in meetings and feel more confident. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Right, let's see if I can share this screen a bit more effectively this time. Do tell me that's working. Is it working?
Yeah, that's great.
Ah, perfect, fantastic. Okay, so success without struggle. We're still talking about that. I want to help you control your business destiny. So what I'm going to share with you is, I'll be honest with you, the most powerful, the most important tool we've got in the Sandler toolbox. So I'm hoping that at the end of this session, you can go away and really make a major difference to your business right now. The upfront contract. But before we get into the upfront contract, I want to know why do we even need one? What's the problem? So let's have a quick look at this. Does this look in any way familiar? Your client, I don't know, your supplier, colleague, look, even your boss doesn't do what they promised. Or they take ages coming back to you. You know, they promised they're going to come back to you and they still haven't. It was a week ago. Or when the meeting is finished, you're not entirely sure what the next step should be. You just hope it works out okay. And certainly you perhaps just don't feel in control of the process, maybe in your sales process. Or have you had one of these meetings? You're not really sure what the purpose of the meeting was. Not really, if you're honest. Or they surprised you by not giving you enough time. You know, you need that 90 minutes for the discovery meeting. You turn up and then you get prepared to give you 20 minutes. Has that ever happened to you? Or they blindsided you. They've asked you for information you weren't ready for. They asked you for technical information that is back at base, and you're not ready for that at all. Or maybe in return, you confused them. They were expecting some sort of presentation, and you're still needing some more discovery questions. And worst, maybe there's no clear outcomes for this meeting set. Now, before we go any further, I don't want to be upsetting people who sell in people's front rooms. I'll be honest, I've done that too. I've been on both sides. Okay, I started my sales life just here, the real nightmare meeting, being sold to in your own home. Now, the trouble is, there's probably no clear expectations, and we're working on tactics as to how to get rid of them off our sofa before they even turned up. You know, there's that little code between us, between you and your partner, or you'll say that. You say that, and I'll say that. That'll mean that we're trying to get rid of him, okay? Right, got it. Or you're worried about being strong-armed into doing something that you don't really want to do. And that means you're probably not going to be too open, particularly about maybe what you're prepared to spend, just in case they use that information against you. I gotta ask you, is this meeting going to go well on either side, maybe? Suppose they did this. Now, today's Tuesday. Supposing the meeting was on Thursday and they gave you a call and it went something like this. Hi, we've got a meeting on Thursday evening. I just wanted to check that that's still okay. The reason I'm coming is just to see if I can help. The good news is I'll only need an hour. Is there anything in particular you want us to cover, any information you want from me? Because I'm going to ask you about the problem that you've mentioned to me, what you're happy to invest to fix that, and how you go about deciding to use somebody like myself. So at the end of that meeting, we'll either decide to stop there, and that's absolutely fine. We can do that. Or maybe we might need to set up a second meeting because we've got into, we need to get into more information from one another. Or maybe we even decide to start doing some business together, in which case I'll need a small deposit at that stage. Is that all going to be okay? Is this meeting going to go better? If so, why? Well, it's basically because the pressure's been taken off, hasn't it? The pressure off whom? Well, the pressure off the potential client, that's for sure. My goodness, yeah, but after all, we know he's going to go in an hour's time. That's it. It's when you can put up with him for an hour. And we can say no. We can stop there. Or we can at least go to another meeting. Do you know what? If we want to work with him, we can do that. And he's told us what the worst is going to be. Hey, yeah, let's really concentrate now on how they might better help. And the pressure's also off the salesperson as well, isn't it? Because after all, he's now got the A-OK to ask all the awkward questions that he really wants to ask, like what the impact is of the problem, what is they're prepared to invest, and how they're even going to make a decision, and how much they might even perhaps do business. Wow, this meeting has got to go better, hasn't it? Well, if that's true, in effect, we're talking about claiming equal business standing. We're setting up a contract. Now, those of us who are legally trained here on the webinar will recognize that these are the elements of a legal contract: offer, acceptance, awareness, consideration. That means something of value has to pass between the two parties, capacity to contract, and it's obviously got to be for a legal reason. So a contract is written at the end. What I'm talking about is something that's verbal at the beginning, but it still looks quite like a contract. We're going to have a purpose, the reasons for this interaction. We're going to be very clear how long that meeting is going to go on for. And we're going to make it very clear what the agendas are, not just what we want to talk about. What is it that they want to talk about? And the only way we can know about that is we're going to ask. And that's one of the main reasons why it's got to be verbal, by the way. We really have got to get the feedback from them and set the expectations on both sides as to what's going to happen, because we do want a very clear outcome. And it could be one or two things. It might be slightly more than two outcomes, but basically we want to know, is it yes or no at the end of the meeting, to the next step at least, if not to the final decision, at least to the next step. So that's the components of the upfront contract. When do we set one up? I'm going to suggest verbally, as you even suggest that maybe we should have a meeting. That's the best time to set up an upfront contract. And then you might want to send out an Outlook invitation or at least an email explaining why we're meeting, just a quick reminder as to why we're meeting. And therefore, we've got it written so everybody has a record and everybody can be clear about what it is that needs to be discussed. And then, funny enough, we're going to have to also go through the upfront contract at the start of the meeting. Why would we want to do the upfront contract all over again? Well, for a number of reasons. First of all, it could be that things have changed between now and when we first set the upfront contract, even if it was only an hour ago. Or certainly we need them to be aware that we are completely serious. That's what is going to happen in this meeting on both sides. So really make sure that both sides are sticking to what was agreed. That's why we need to be reminded of what the upfront contract is before we get into the meat of the meeting. So when should you use an upfront contract? Well, I'm going to suggest any time that's more than just a couple of minutes on the phone. If it's going to be a proper interaction of some description, it's going to be some of your lifeblood, some of your time with this person, you should have an upfront contract. And that means externally with prospects, with clients, suppliers even. What about internally with your colleagues, bosses, direct reports? I'm going to say maybe even with your family, if you're going to be really brave, with your family, friends, and contacts. So what have you learnt? And what will you do more, better, less, or different if you knew that this is the way to look after your business destiny, for you to take control, to have that equal business standing? If you want our ebook, let me know on pglynn@salon.com, or there's my number 07866518848. Thank you.
Fabulous, thanks, Paul. So as we bring back all our speakers, I've got some questions for everybody. So we'll just welcome back Sinead and Isaac if they could unmute and turn their videos back on. Fabulous, thank you. Thanks, everybody. So the first one, Paul, is for you. So it's from Grace. So I've just started my business. My old manager would always say I was too passionate. She has impacted my confidence. Do you think in business you can be too passionate?
Yes. It's a straight answer. Well, yes, in a way, in the sense that Sinead was mentioning how we need to vary the way we come across to the people we're talking to. I think if we're talking to the high dominance, for example, the last thing they want is for you to be all passionate over them. No, they're not interested. So you do need to have to vary the way you're coming across to the people you're talking to. But so that was the short answer. But no, of course you can't be too passionate. You need to have that energy. You need to be prepared to do what it takes to go where you want to go, and that can only come from you. That can only come from your passion. But so when I said yes, you can be too passionate, I mean if you come across too passionate, that can be really off-putting. But no, you can't be too passionate in making sure that you are driven to what you need and what you want in your life.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. And good luck, Grace, as you just started. This one's for Isaac, and another person just starting from Haley. I'm wanting to start my own business, but I'm just so scared of the financial implications for my family, and that's what's holding me back. There isn't actually, she hasn't, so I guess it's a statement, but any support or advice you could give there, Isaac?
So if I'm understanding correctly, she's already worried about how the impact will be of the business in terms of and that kind of stopping
Yes.
from moving forward. I would ask, what's her name again? Sorry?
Haley.
Haley. I would ask Haley first of all to connect to your dream, to connect to your
Mhm.
goal. What is it that you want to achieve? Where do you see yourself in 2 years' time, 3 years' time? What is and we talked about the passion in the previous question. It's understanding that and connecting to that dream, and each one of those fears, anxieties, or thoughts, or as I call them in my presentation, fears of failures. Imagine it's like weeds. It's like, it's this thing that blocks you from growing. So there are some techniques to what I'm suggesting to my clients to befriend those fears, to understand, to allow them a space and a place to be next to you and understand it's there, but it's not taking control. I will still go forward. I will still get to the place I want. And that's again connected to the passion, and it's all about this motivation.
Yeah.
aspect.
Fabulous. Thanks, Isaac. So Sinead, one for you from Mandy. I have a strong regional accent. Do you think that impacts on how I am viewed? Should I try to tone it down?
Really interesting question. I'm asked this all the time. Obviously, we all have regional accents, and I am an accent and dialect coach, but that does not mean that I do accent reduction, as it's called, which to me sounds quite aggressive. But neutralization and being comprehensible is really, really important. So for me, no matter where you're from, as long as you speak clearly, and it's the consonants that are quite tricky. Vowels are easy. It's simply opening your mouth. But in terms of the consonants, sometimes you get a little bit lazy with that. So it's very important to articulate every consonant of every word. I'm going to talk about pace again, slowing yourself down. As long as you are comprehensible, it shouldn't matter, really where you're from or what your accent sounds like. The problem sometimes is when we aren't speaking with clarity. And sometimes people blame that on the accent, but very often it's not that at all. It could be the fact that perhaps we're lacking in confidence, we're under pressure, we don't really want to be there. Accents should be celebrated, and we have come a very long way from 50 or 60 years ago when we all felt we had to speak in a certain way on the media. Other accents, thankfully, are being welcomed. So I would say, accents should be embraced. Speaking clearly is a priority.
Yeah, brilliant.
I
Thank
can
you.
relate to that, Sinead, about the
Yeah.
accent because I'm carrying that accent of not a native English speaker. And yes, it's a demon as long as you allow it to grow. It's there, but you work around it and you practice and practice and practice until, yes, my accent my kids always laugh at my accent, but I don't care anymore.
It's wonderful. And Isaac, it's because you're so clear as well. You're clear, you're comprehensible. There's no issue whatsoever. And it adds beautiful vocal color. There's a beautiful resonance with it. If we all spoke the same, we'd be putting each other to sleep with boredom. So absolutely, accents are amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I always think mine's my superpower. That's what I think.
Yes.
So fabulous. Thank you. So one now again for you, Paul, from Barney. How do I prove integrity to people I have just met? That's a tricky one.
Right. The only way you can prove your integrity with someone you've just met is by doing precisely what it is that you've agreed to do. If you do what you say you're going to do, then that's the best evidence for your integrity. But it's really hard to prove it over a short period of time. But at the same time, it comes across, if you're looking at it on the long-term basis, when you have that internal integrity, it just somehow shows. It's just the way that you're talking about that body language, Sinead. It just comes across in everything you do and say. But hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you, Paul. One for you, Isaac, from Reshma. Oh, so it's to your last point. So I struggle with procrastination. I would love to know some tools to deal with that. So I know we've not got a lot of time, but can you share some of your secret
So
procrastination
it's not
tips?
secret. That's the thing. It's gonna be on LinkedIn in 7 minutes from now because I schedule it, but it's not a secret. So quick. It will take me 2 minutes. What I'm asking, what's her name? Rashma? Rashma?
Reshma.
Reshma, please think about this thing that you are procrastinating. If there is one thing that you are procrastinating about, just think about it and take a deep breath. Just really take a deep breath. And take another one. And now write on a scale of 1 to 10, how motivated are you to do this thing? And if it's from, I would say, scale 6 and below, I would like to again ask yourself, well, first of all, ask yourself, what is it that you would like to do? What is it the one thing you need to do in order to get above? So if you can identify like, oh, actually, I can do this one action item that will take me closer to completing this task, write it down and see if you can do it. And see if you can do it. I'm not asking you to do the whole thing. You know, there is one thing that I'm always talking about, and is the self-assessment. How a dreadful task is all of us business owners out there when 5th of April comes and we can just pushing it away, pushing it away, pushing it away until the deadline is coming and we need to do it, right? And I've decided every day, write this down with me. Write this down. This is on my task list. Write this down. I'm pushing it tomorrow. Write this down. I'm pushing it tomorrow. The day that I felt, you know what? My motivation level is 7, not 6, not 5, is 7. That is where I sat down and I did 1, 2, 3 items until I'm done and come back to it later. And that's the way you need to do. That's what you can do in order to beat that procrastination. It's not like magic touch, but it's at least a step forward it.
Fabulous. I really like that. You're not getting rid of it. You're just waiting for the motivation to be there. So that's great. Thank you, Isaac. Sinead, one for you from Suhail. Should I change my 3 words for different situations? So I think that's probably the 3 words that you choose how you want to be.
Yes, the answer is controversially, no, you should not. And those 3 words are your core words for every single situation, not even in the work environment, in your personal life as well. Now, sometimes people find that very difficult to accept and they question, really? How does that even work? Trust me, it does. Really, if you have to, adapt your communication style, for example, for certain audiences, simply add more words to your initial 3 words. So they're your grounding words, and the more often you do this, the more natural it will feel. I will say, as well as the other points that I made, a lot of these things will feel very weird when you first try them. And you might think, oh, this feels very embarrassing. It's not me. It's inauthentic. That's because we're all human. It takes a little while to become used to them. So in a nutshell, your 3 words should be absolutely across the board for every single environment, without a doubt.
Brilliant. You're absolutely right. I thought you were going to say change it. So that's
No.
really interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you. Fab. Okay, that's lovely. I think we're about at the end of our questions within the time frame that we've got. So it's just for me really to thank you all for joining us today. So thank you, Paul, Isaac and Sinead. It's been absolutely fascinating. I've definitely got lots that I'm going to be taking away from the session. I want to thank the FSB events team for pulling the session together, and a reminder that it will be on our rewatch service on our website, and that's where you can also check out all FSB events, both in person and our online webinars. If you have enjoyed today's session, please do leave us a Trustpilot review. It's a great way for other businesses to learn about the sport that we have on offer. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye.